Welcome to the Imbalance Podcast, a place where we navigate the struggles and perks of single mom life, the ebbs and flows of my work in the beauty industry, quality relationships, working through personal traumas, and finding our higher purpose. Sounds like a lot of struggling? Well, it is. So grab a drink and let's try and balance it together, because who said we have to navigate through this chaos alone? Welcome to your weekly dose of mom brain, unfinished tasks, work fatigue, and simply trying to balance the imbalanceable with me, Kat, your host. So things are getting a little rough out here. Okay, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that the prices of literally everything is getting astronomical. And it's to a point where I feel like a lot of us, we all feel the same way, and we're all trying to figure out, like, what is there to even do about it? Yes, we can save, but it's like if everything that we have to purchase is so much more now, then what are we even saving for? We might as well just blow all our money. Please don't do that. That's not like a tip or anything that I have for you. That's just what sometimes that's where my mind goes sometimes, honestly. I'm just like, well, there's nothing I could do about it. So I might as well just buy that extra meal, buy that extra drink, buy that extra shirt, buy that extra this, whatever. Sometimes that's what happens. And I know that's not logical, but I guess it's more of like a coping mechanism. So, anywho, today we are going to talk about money, and I'm going to have my guest on here today, Miss Keina, helping us with that. She is a financial coach, and she just basically helps people save and spend their money correctly. She's framework her business into, from what I researched, a 5-month plan to help people make the best decisions with money that they have and the savings that they have acquired. Today, Keina is going to give us some tips and tricks on how to save and spend our money correctly. So get your pens, your notebook, your calculators, your glasses, whatever you need to get out, okay? And we're going to take some notes, because at this point, we have to start taking action and doing something about it, because nobody else is going to save us but ourselves. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and find it very helpful. And of course, if you do, you can always reach out. Let me know how you feel about it and how it has helped you or changed your path. So enjoy the episode. How did you get started in this field?
So I left education. I was a vice principal and a teacher, and I wanted to do something that was like equally impactful. Like I got into education because it was impactful. And when you answer the question, like, what's one thing you would do for free? It was like help people budget. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually, my degree is in management and finance.
Mm-hmm.
I became a teacher by accident because God has a sense of humor. And I did Teach for America, but one of the ways I was able to do Teach for America was like I literally started budgeting. I was like, if you're going to make me make $30,000 a year, then I need to know that I can pay my bills.
Right.
Because I wanted to be able to pursue something that I felt passionate about, but I also needed to be able to eat. Like, those two things are very important to me,
Right.
passion and eating. And so like I've used budgeting a lot in my life to be able to think about what do I want to be able to create. And so just as like when I was in education, I was coaching already, but on a different
Mm-hmm.
topic. And then so I feel like this is like the wedding of the two, where I get to like coach, but then I get to coach on money, which is something else that I love.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. How long were you a vice principal for?
Um, Gosh, how long was I a vice principal for? I think at least 5 to 6 years. I like have lost count. I
Yeah.
was in education for over a decade. So I was in the classroom for a while, but I became a vice principal. Maybe I even did it longer than that. I should know, Cap. But it's crazy because I
Okay.
haven't been in the like I haven't been in like a school setting in over 6 years, which is also crazy for me to think about because it seems like just yesterday I was like telling some little middle school student to
To get
like
it
be
together.
nice. Yeah, like come on. Why are we having this conversation? We just had it last week. I'm gonna send you to class. I'm giving you a hug. Please do not come back to me.
Right. I do not want to see you again.
But inevitably, I see you again. Yes, yes.
Okay, I love that. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely helpful having the education background, obviously, because you're literally teaching people about their finances and how to better save and spend and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Could you explain what sets apart the main 5-month partnership versus the 5-month money coaching for creatives and why it's important to differentiate the two?
They're one and the same in the sense of like people that are creatives are just like business owners.
Mhm.
I think business owners don't realize that they have to manage their business finances if they also want to manage their personal finances really well.
Mhm.
They're commingled.
Mhm.
And when I say commingled, it's like when you're thinking about your business, I always like people to be thinking about like you are the CEO and the CFO of your finances in your business. And so as your business is your employer, and so you want to make sure that you're managing your finances right so you can pay yourself as the employee and then get your personal finances together. Too many people, especially business owners, it's like when you make a dollar, it's not really a dollar. That dollar has
Right.
expenses tied to it, it has taxes tied to it. And so like in the on the business side, we're like thinking about your pricing. Does this make sense? Because math is math, but it's not the same type of math when you just have a W-2 job. Like when you got a W-2 job, it's pretty clear math
Mhm.
that you can just follow and know that like my paycheck is pretty much the same unless like you may have a job where you get maybe paid hourly, and so like that may look a little bit different, but it's just the approach in which I'm looking at your finances. So they're the same. I'm just saying, oh, okay, you're responsible for making money on your own versus like someone is paying you consistently every 2 weeks, every month, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I can totally contest to not knowing what the hell I'm doing with being a business owner. Like, truly, I feel like we probably should have tapped into more or probably should have more requirements when it does come to business owning because like you said, it's like, "Oh, this is how much money I'm bringing in. Like, this is all my money and then I just kind of take a chunk of it for my personal." But then you're not accounting for all of the business expenses and like
Mhm.
what that really looks like in the long run to see what your real profit is. And it can become like a literal mess. So I think that is great that, that stood out to me because I was like, she, understands that owning a business and just being employed is two totally different things. They can both still be really great things, but if we don't know where to put the money, we can fail.
Well, yeah, and it's like, I mean, I own a business as well, and it's being able to keep your nervous system calm when you're like, this month is looking like I ain't making no money, So you like looking
Right.
around, and I also think like owning your numbers as a business owner is also about being able to like say yes to your best clients.
Hmm.
Because too many people are saying yes to people just because they need the money, not because they actually want to work with the people.
Hmm.
And so when you are managing your finances well, you're still going to have the fluctuations in your income, but you are going to be able to make decisions from a totally different place. And when I say like a different place, it's like a different emotional state because
Yep.
when you know that's like, okay, I'm safe because I have like taxes covered, I can like safely pay myself. Even when months don't look like I want them to look, you like know that you have a plan.
Exactly. And it just creates more confidence, like you said, and less anxiety pretty
Mhm.
much. So why 5 months?
Yeah. So 5 months is what I found was like a sweet spot to be able to get people a full transformation. And I
Hmm.
think it allows us to do enough like life together. Cause I think the number one question that people have is like, but what happens if or when? And so those ifs and whens happen while we work together. So if we only work
Hmm.
together for a month, like we get some pretty good life. But when we're working together for 5 months, we get to literally do life together. I've had people get divorced while working with me. I've had
Oh
people,
shit.
not because of me, I should say
Right,
that.
right.
But like, like have a change in relationship and be like, hey, like I had a client who she was with a long term partner, and she's like, yeah, we're separating, and so like
Hmm.
we had to then look at her finances through a different lens, and because we were working together for 5 months, we get to like she gets to calmly talk about it and
Hmm.
actually be in a space to like process her relationship versus having to like stress about her finances. Or I've had clients where they've gotten engaged, and also gotten pregnant, and so we like get to talk about like what's going to happen with your numbers after these two life events happen. Or had another client, her father passed away while we were working together,
Mhm.
So she knew she was going to get some inheritance. We like talked about that. So it's really just about these like places where we get to do life. I've had a client lose her job. So it's like just, I feel like it allows us to do enough life together where you feel really confident that you don't have to worry about the system we put into place, like not supporting you. I think so many people have tried budgeting before, and they feel like they're not good at math and they're going to fail. But we get to work on those behavioral shifts that are going to allow you to be able to support yourself
Mhm.
without like needing a coach always in your back pocket.
Right, like, it's like a long-term type of deal.
Hmm.
But yeah, it seems like you kind of create like an intimate, well, not intimate, but, you create
Oh, it's
closeness.
it's very intimate. Like I feel like people tell me things probably that they've never said out loud to other people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I literally work with strangers that find me on Google, right? So like they don't know me from like anybody else.
Mhm.
And some of my clients are like referrals, but for the most part, it's like I found you on Instagram, I found you on Google, I heard you on a podcast. So like they don't know me. But yet I would say I'm like, oh, how was your date? Or, like,
Right.
how's your mom?
Tell him I said hi.
Yeah. But yeah, we end up having and create this like relationship together. Um, and I want it to be that way because I don't want people to feel like they're judged, and I want to
Yeah.
like be able to help them walk them through like decision making processes for their finances. I was actually writing an email today that it's like the number one question I want people to ask themselves is like, how do you want to spend your money? And it's like, how do you want to spend your money today? How do you want to spend your money a week from now? How do you want to spend your money a month from now? And so, like, those are like the questions that I'm asking in the coaching container, not those direct ones, but
Mhm.
it's because I want people to have that flexibility to be thinking about their money on different levels and knowing that at the end of the day, all you're doing is just making decisions for how you want to spend.
Yeah, absolutely, and just thinking about it deeper, and like you said, in the future, we tend to just think of, like, right now, what we're doing right now, but this is very much of, like, this is something we have to set ourselves up for
Hmm.
longevity. On your website, I saw this event that you host, which seemed really unique. Talk to us about mimosas and money matters.
I haven't hosted that event in a while because of COVID, but
But you know,
um,
we're kinda coming out we're coming out of that
we are.
little bubble.
I actually I've been thinking about getting back and like doing a live event with that. But the mimosas and money matters is like getting people to know that, like bringing people into a space where they can talk about money in a
Mhm,
non-judgmental way.
mhm.
And the mimosas is there is like to bring in the fun, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
I want you to know that you can talk about your finances and it's not all about like, oh girl, how much debt you in?
Right.
Like what haven't you done, right?
Right.
Um and really, when we're talking about money, I want you to know that like you're asking questions because they can inform you to make your best next decision. Like if you're talking to your girlfriend about how she bought her house, you're going to learn something about how you can buy a house, or things that she learned, like what are some missteps that she took that you want to make sure that you avoid. Or you could be asking about like, okay, I know you negotiated your salary, like what did you have to be thinking, or like how did you
Mhm,
feel, right? Like all of those are money conversations. And so being able to get people in a space and in a place together where they can start being curious. I think
mhm.
curiosity is like one of the best feelings you can have when it comes to your finances, because it's going to drown out some of the overwhelm and the guilt and the shame, like those other big emotions that come up. So yeah, just a place to encourage people to like talk about their finances. And I want to help people make the next step, the next
Mhm.
best step for them. And I don't think, the first step doesn't look the same for everybody. So that's the premise of Mimosas and Money Matters.
Yeah. I just thought that was really cute, and, that might be something I need to look into. Bring some people together, start talking about it, you know? Um, so could you give us a few tips on, like, some money saving tips, something simple off the bat?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first tip I would have is like, just put paying yourself first as a priority. Like put yourself into your financial life as a bill. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people pay all of their other bills and they think like I'll save what's left over. So it's literally you're becoming last,
Mhm.
and everybody else is a priority. And so making like saving a habit. So if you can start with $5 every single paycheck or $25 every single paycheck, don't get caught up with the amount, just like making it a habit. Because if you establish the habit of saving and paying yourself first, as you make more money or you understand your finances more, you're going to do it more consistently.
Mhm.
And because you have the habit, you're going to start saving larger amounts over time and really see the impact of that. The other thing I would talk about in terms of like saving is I think there's a lot of holes in people's spending. Like you don't know, like you're like, oh, I had two Hulu subscriptions that are tied to different emails. It's like
Mhm.
just because your bills are on auto pay, actually take the time to like look at your bank account or your credit card and like on a weekly basis just looking at like where is your money going from a
Right.
non-judgmental space, because what you're going to catch is you're like, oh, I didn't know about the subscription, I didn't know about, this thing that renews in August. And it may not look like physically saving money, right? Like it's not to like transfer the $25 somewhere,
Right.
but you're going to start to be able to evaluate where your money is going and start canceling things that you're like, oh, I actually don't know why I'm paying for that anymore, right? Like I'm paying for Peloton subscription, but I'm not using my Peloton. And
Right.
so, like, just being able to make some of those connections from a non judgmental way. And then similarly with the subscriptions, the other thing that I tell people to do is like negotiate. Like your car
Mhm.
insurance, call around and make sure that like you're getting the best deal. I know that there's a lot about like brand loyalty, but at least call and make sure that even with your current company that you're with, like, hey, can you go and walk through my policy with me? Am I taking advantage of all of the like multi-line item discounts? And so just be willing to ask that question. You can do that with your cell phone. You do it with your cable and internet. What's the other one I'm thinking of? Like my security, my home security. Ever so
Mhm.
often they try to make it go up by like $2, $3, and it's not even a lot, right? So you're like, oh, but if you're not watching it, if
Right.
they're going up by $3
Every
over,
year.
every year, right? And I've been in my house for 10 years, then like that's going to be a $30 increase over time. And so just like your monthly bills that are things that you've opted into, just making sure you're getting the best rate for them or like at least watching them to pay attention, but just like not accepting something going up just because you think I have to accept
That
it
you have
going up.
to.
Hmm.
Yeah, that just recently happened to me with my car insurance. I had been with this company for a long time and then they upped it by like $100. And I'm like,
Hmm.
hello, what's going on? And they literally told me that because of inflation, they can't go any lower. Like they can't give
Hmm.
me anything. I said, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And I went somewhere else, got a cheaper fee, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, I understand inflation, but that's also ridiculous,
Yeah,
but
I feel like the car insurance is a very interesting one because everybody got the discounts during COVID because people weren't
yeah.
driving. And then it was like post COVID, things started to increase. And I know like with car insurance, it's also like dependent on where you are and the number of accidents
Mhm.
and just it's craziness. But I would say like I think that's a great example. Same is true if you own a home, call about your home insurance, not just to make sure that like one, to make sure that you have coverage that adequately would help if you lost your home. So like if your
Mhm.
home was lost in a storm or a fire or something like that, you want to make sure that as your house has appreciated with value, that you have enough coverage that your house could be rebuilt. So like if you like for instance, my house was about 390,000, where I couldn't rebuild my house for 390. Like I think it's
Mm.
like closer to probably like 600,000.
Mhm.
And so like I have to make sure that I'm checking on that coverage so that if anything happened to my house, I will be covered in the event that I need to replace it. And so like call and check with that with your home insurance, annually even. And then also just make sure that you are getting like, hey, can you run my numbers again to make sure
Right.
that my premium is correct? Because when I called, I want to say I saved at least $100 annually. I think a lot of people just need to take more ownership, and ownership doesn't mean more time. It's just like putting a time on your calendar, whether it's your birthday or your birthday and your half birthday, to just be like, this is the kind of the time of year where I just take some time to check on my bills.
Yeah, just to kind of like refresh everything, make sure you know where things are going, like you said.
Hmm.
I do that often as far as like subscriptions. I still am at a point where I'm just like, I still always go back and look, and I'm like, do I really need that? But I'm like, I think I do. And, like I'm still stuck on some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the other thing about auto pay too, I kind of like turned auto pay off for some things just
Hmm.
because I'm like, you know what? I want to know when I'm paying that bill. Like I don't want it to just be, keep taking out on its own. And
Hmm.
I do think that that is a good tip because then you can see what's due.
Yeah, yeah. And I like, because I have money dates every single week or every other week, I'm looking at the things that are on auto pay. So I'm making sure that I agree with it. Because on the flip side of auto pay, a couple years ago, I want to say it was my water bill, they stopped taking my payment because they changed their system.
Oh.
And I want to say it was for like 2 or 3 months. And I ended up calling them to be like, hey, my bill hasn't been deducted. They're like, oh, yeah, we have this issue. But I'm like, let me not pay my bill, like if it had been reversed, right?
Right. Now you're paying late fees and
Right,
your
right.
water's
But
cut
like,
off.
I'm like, at least I'm someone who like pays attention, right? Because if I'm
Yeah.
not paying attention and I'm just relying on the fact that my bill is on auto pay, so I guess I paid it,
Mhm.
that can be something that's a couple $100 where now you don't have the money seemingly because you spent it. And so it's like, I don't want people just putting their stuff on auto pay and letting auto pay be just the function that makes them feel safe. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people, their flex is being able to put things on auto pay, right? Because they've never been able to do it. But you still need to check your bills because everybody's not pulling things correctly on the right date or even the right amount. Like, don't be a bystander in that
Right.
process.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. So buying a house right now,
Hmm.
I don't even know the rates or anything, but
Hmm.
for those who I know you're not a realtor or anything like that, but I'm
Hmm.
sure you do help people in that process probably.
Hmm.
Do you have any tips for people trying to buy homes right now and like maybe certain things to do with your money or certain habits that you can maybe start doing if you are wanting to buy a home?
Hey all! Some of you may already know this, but besides being your podcast host, I'm also a cosmetologist. I have been in the beauty industry for the past 12 years and I specialize in curly hair care, hair cutting, and coloring in the Northern Virginia area. My books are open, and if you'd ever like to book an appointment with me, please visit my website at www.kathlena.com. I also offer an adult and child versions of my ebook, Your Natural Hair Wash and Go Style Guide, which provides key information behind the science of hair, step-by-step wash, condition, and styling process, product recommendations, and more. Purchase right now and enjoy $10 off, no code required. Now back to the show.
Yeah. So when I wanted to buy a house, I felt like houses were too expensive for me at the time.
Mm.
And so I just want to first start by saying, like, if you're in that space where you're like, I'm never going to be able to afford a home because it's so expensive, like, don't
Mm.
lose sight of your goal, right?
This question for me.
Yes, I just recorded a podcast episode on this. I think it came out last week. And it was like, because I think you could apply it to any goal that you have, whether it's making more money in your business, making more money in your 9 to 5, whatever it is. It's like, if you don't have a goal, and something that you're working towards, you're going to become stagnant. But like, I
Yeah.
moved to DC in '09 and I didn't put a contract on a house until 2013. Like, it took me 4 years, you know?
Yeah.
But if I hadn't have had a goal of buying a home, I wouldn't have gone house shopping for multiple years and like been able to identify where I wanted to live or like got to know the market a little bit more. And so I just would offer that to people because it's going to help you shape how you want your finances to look when you are able to buy a home, right?
Mhm.
Um, so one of the, I mean, I was budgeting when I first came here. I couldn't save very much because, as we know, DC is really high cost of living. So I was like, "Oh, look at me saving $50 a month." um,
Yes.
but I remember one of the things like that I did before I bought my house is My rent at the time was like $1,800. It had started at 1480. But I just remember thinking like, okay, like if I want to buy a house, like how much is the house payment going to be, and what's the difference in between my rent and the house payment? And
Okay.
so I think like that's an important number for people to know. Like if you were paying $2,000 for rent, but you're thinking your house payment's going to be $3,000, start saving the extra $1,000 in an account.
Okay.
So like creating a budget that resembles you buying a home in advance of you actually buying the home, because then you're going to understand where the pinches are going to be in like your everyday spending. I kind of feel like it's similar with the people that have kids and all of a sudden they have daycare money, but you ask them like where was that daycare money before you had a baby, and they can't tell you like where they
Mm,
came up with the daycare money. Like they're like,
mm,
oh no, I guess I was just spending it. But
right.
like I would say one of the habits is like make a home budget before you even buy a home and start saving that money, because that
Mm,
money can go towards your down payment and go towards your moving expenses. But most of all, it's going to give you that security that you can actually afford to like be a homeowner, right? And
yeah.
you're not going to have that scary transition period. Um, and while you're in the process of buying a home, like if you're a first time home buyer, like go look up the incentives for first time home buyers in your area. Like there's
Mm,
literal dollars out there to help people with like down payment assistance. I didn't actually use anything in terms of down payment assistance that they had in DC, but educate yourself on the type of loan offers that there are. When I bought my house, got a conventional loan for 5% down with no PMI. PMI is property mortgage insurance, and basically like money you don't get back. It's like a penalty that they give you for not having 20% down.
mm,
But there are loan programs. Like I told you, I got with Navy Federal Credit Union, I was able to get 5% down, no
right.
PMI. And just knowing like this is what I'm talking about, like having money conversations. This is something that I learned from talking to somebody, that I could get this conventional loan with no PMI. And at the time, it was a better offer for me than to do like an FHA loan, which I think a lot of people know about because you only needed to put 3.5% down,
Right.
but they did have PMI with that too. So it's just like I would say educating yourself is really important. Creating like a fake budget,
Mm,
and doing the research like on the loan type that you want to be able to use, because it's just going to help you know your numbers and where you're actually going to stand. I feel like I
yeah.
said a lot.
Yeah, no, I think that was really good information though. Because I didn't know about PMI. I mean, I knew there were some stipulations for like the FHA loans and stuff like that. That's why they're
Hmm.
not so like, here, you get this and you get this. It's like there's still stipulations that you have to like follow under.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was very useful. And
Oh, the last thing I would say too is know that interest rates are negotiable.
okay.
So I can't remember the technical name for it, but when I was searching from like one lender to the next, different lenders will give you different rates. But
Okay.
there's a paper that they basically a lender will give you without like having to pull your credit,
Mm,
or do like a hard credit pull, and they'll tell you like, okay, you would typically qualify for 400,000, and we would offer you that at the rate of 6.25%. Well, if you have another bank that has given you a similar letter, but they're offering you that same amount of money for 6.5%, then you can say, hey, loan or bank A actually wants to give me this for 6.25%. Can you match that rate? So just
mm.
knowing that that's even an option, as you go through the home buying process, that you don't have to actually pay the rate that they tell you.
Wow. See, some people would never know that.
Yeah. So,
And taking note too of how long you said you lived here for 4 years before you found your home. And I
mhm,
think that a lot of us think that, oh, within a year, like I can find my home within, even less than that. So I think that is important to know. Sometimes it will take longer, but doesn't mean it's impossible. And it taking
mhm,
longer can just mean you're doing more research, like you said, and you're still looking at houses within those time frames, but not necessarily looking to be like, oh, I'm going to move right now. It's like I just want
mhm,
to see practice practice doing it, get your mindset there. So I think that that is a really good reminder for sure.
Yeah, you can get your money in order in 4 years. Like, make
Yeah,
more. Because
absolutely.
I probably think I increased my income by like 25K in that time,
Hmm.
30K in that time. I was making about $80,000 a year when I bought my house. And so it's like a good time to also be like, okay, how much money do I want to make in order to feel comfortable as a homeowner? And I should also say, when I bought my house, I was like, well, back to saving just a little bit of money.
Right, here we go.
Like, because more things were like, my responsibility, but at the same time, then I went from like 80,000 to making over six figures. So it's like
Right, it
being it
balanced
like
out.
there's just like so many other numbers that you have to be able to play with and like kind of negotiate with, but you don't want to go into a house blind. Like, you definitely want to know your numbers or your feelings will be hurt.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that happened to me when I was looking to buy a home. It's like, okay, I might have had the savings to put in a certain amount of down payment down and all these things, but I'm like, okay, once I'm in the home though, am I making enough money to pay this
Hmm.
mortgage?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, I do not want to be at that point where I feel like, oh my God, I have what I wanted, but
Yeah.
I'm struggling. And so I was like, let me take a step back, really get everything together. And, I'm going to get there. I know I am. I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think for business owners, right, you can make however much money you want to make. And so it's like being able to even reverse engineer, like, how much money would I be bringing in my business? How much money would I be paying myself? And, like, what's my timeline for that?
Yeah.
And so, not just, I feel like some people work in their business just day to day and month to month, like they're only moving, they're not looking backwards. And I'm not saying backwards from what happened in the past, but I'm saying from a point in the future, and being able to
Mm,
say, like, in the next 5 years, I want to create seven figures. Okay, well, if that's true, what would need to happen in year one, year two, year three, year four, and year five? Some people are just looking at, like, this week, I want to bring in X number of dollars, but where does that mean you are 2 years from now or 3 years from now?
right. You got to look at it like as a whole, basically.
And especially in your industry, because, like, you use your body, so
Right.
y'all really gotta understand
Girl.
what's happening. I'm like, what's your exit plan? Let me know. And I feel like I know a lot of women in the beauty industry, and I'm always just so intrigued to be like, have you thought about an exit plan? Because I'm also the girl that's like, excuse me, I have questions. Yeah.
No, that is 100% valid. I am at a point where I want to work less and but get paid more.
Hmm.
I'm not a point where I'm like, "Oh, I wanna take every other client and, like, all the time and work all," like, no, I work very specific days and people will be like, "Oh, you don't work on weekends?" I said, "Oh, I do, it's just that I only work specific weekends and they're
Hmm.
all booked up." Like, there's, like, 2 or 3 slots and you gotta get
Yeah.
in where you fit in.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, okay," but if they are clients of mine, obviously, they're on rotation,
Hmm.
but, I do think that I am at that point where I have been thinking about that. I love the work that I do and being in the beauty industry, but I know for sure I do not wanna be standing behind a chair. I've been doing it for 12, 13 years. I don't 13 years from now, I feel like I need to be in a different place.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. And that's where, like, speaking of money, it's like using, how do you use your money to invest in yourself in ways that improve your life, right? Like, both
mhm,
personally and professionally. I don't think we've been taught how to invest in that way. I think I've done it a lot more since I've owned a business, like dropping thousands of dollars to work with people,
right.
and help me create results that I wouldn't have been able to create on my own.
Mhm.
And so, just help, like, I feel like people really have to think about, like, how do I also use my money to get results quicker? And I'm
Right.
not talking about Ponzi schemes, right? Like, not an MLM, like, not stuff like that, but
No, please.
how how do you, like, when you have been following a mentor for a while and there may be an offer there that you see that could enrich your, what you're trying to do in your life, or an area of your life that you realize you're like, oh, I'm trying to get into shape, right? So like, what is the investment, or like investing in a personal trainer? How does that help you? Like, people have to be asking themselves those questions, because I just don't think that we understand like a return on investment in the way that we should in investing money in ourselves.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like, "Oh, I'll just pay someone to help me with this."
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that, like, you actually have to like, they have to teach you how to do the work for yourself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
Yeah.
not ready to commit to that, like, the you can buy, trainings with a personal trainer all you want, but, if you're not doing the things on your own and eating correctly, like, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the same way with money,
Well,
and
yeah, you
coaching.
definitely, you want to have a why, right? Like, and you have to keep coming back to the why.
Mhm.
And I always also tell people like the process doesn't need to be linear. It very seldomly is, but it's being able to identify like, what does consistency look like for you? And I've been really into habits in the last like year or so. And like, I've been asking myself specifically around nutrition and working out, it's like, okay, well, what are the habits that I want to be able to build? Because for
Mhm.
me, that creates sustainability.
Right.
And so I think anything that you're pursuing in your life, any goal, it's like being able to kind of think about like, well, at the end of the day, what are like some of the smallest habits that I can have? And like last year I started going to the gym at 5 in the morning, and it was like, that was just something that became non-negotiable. And now it's just what
Mhm.
I do. Um, and like one of my other habits this year is like, I'm going to go on a walk, like after I eat, or like at some point during the day, or after I finish working. And so it's connected to fitness, but it's not like, it's also not punitive. It makes me feel really good. Like, just being able to find those habits that you can incorporate into your life.
Yeah. No, I agree. There is something I read where it was like, choose, maybe start off with one thing, like one thing you can do every day. It can be literally something simple, reading like a
Mm-hmm.
verse, going on a walk, something really simple. Then you like
Mm-hmm.
build up that it's like an exercise to trust yourself that you
Mm-hmm.
can mark that off your list. So, yep, I'm working on that too, girl. The 5 a.m. workouts, yeah, I don't know. I don't
There's
know if
just
I'll ever
no,
get there.
for me, there's no excuse. I'm a morning person.
Okay.
And granted,
That
I
makes
like
sense.
I like grumble every single morning, like wah, 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 whatever. But like, I have no competing priorities at 5 a.m. Ain't nobody else awake. So I can't be
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to talk to my mama, I need to talk to my best friend. Nobody else is awake.
Right, and that's already something you mark off your list before people even wake up in the morning,
Yeah.
so
And I don't like, I mean, the beauty of it is not having to negotiate it at the end of the day, because what I was finding is like, it's 4 o'clock, you're tired, the same tired you feel at 5 a.m. So choose what hour you want to be tired. And
yeah,
then like, if somebody calls you and is like, hey, you want to go to dinner? You gotta like, no, I gotta work out. Right.
right,
Or like, I'm gonna go to dinner, but now I'm gonna miss my workout. And
and
so
then you
yeah,
feel
just
bad.
5 a.m. It's just done. Just go and forget about it.
Done. I
Mhm.
love that. I love that. I feel like you covered a lot of great, juicy money tips for us. Is there anything else you would like to share?
If you are someone who's money curious and you're like, something that you want to do, and we were just talking about like habits,
Mhm.
like just starting by putting like 10 minutes on your calendar on a Monday, on a Friday, whatever it is, and like give yourself a financial task during that time. Like for me, it literally looks like I'm looking at my budget, paying bills, etc. If that sounds completely overwhelming for you, just like the 10 minutes could be um putting a bill on autopay that you told yourself you were going to put on autopay, or canceling a subscription you told yourself you were going to cancel. I feel
Mhm.
like getting started is the hardest part. And if you can commit to 10 minutes a week, I think you would be astounded at like what you could create in the next 4 weeks, in the next 16 weeks, because you took the time to just commit to that 10 minutes every single week. And like, go outside, do it on a patio while you're drinking your latte, whatever. Like, if that's your Friday kind of morning routine, just like have a time to look at your finances. If you're like, Keina, I don't even know what to look at, I think another great option is, and like I tell my clients to do a money evaluation, and just thinking about and writing down, like, okay, what went well this week with my finances and my spending, right?
Mhm.
What's not working with my spending? What do I not like? And setting some intentions for like, what do I want to shift over this next week? And, even doing that on a weekly basis, you're going to see yourself change and see how you're thinking about things differently. Like I told one of my clients, I'm like, your financial taste buds are changing. Like she was just telling me how she doesn't want to spend money on certain things like she used to, just because she's like, I realize for the same amount of money, I can also do these other things. And so it just comes through that weekly practice of like looking at your numbers and knowing your numbers, being curious with your numbers. So that's one thing that I would say, like, if you want to implement a habit around your money, to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, the getting started part is definitely the hardest. I did my taxes, I'm a little late, but I did them like last week. And the hardest part is just gathering the information, but
Oh goodness. Taxes is a whole different beast, but yeah.
Right. You're like, we're not even going to get into that.
I hate taxes. I'm like, cuz it's a whole bunch of like, let me take a picture of this, PDF it.
Yeah, it's literally just because I feel like I'm somewhat organized. So I know I have the information, but I have to gather it together, put it in one spot, turn it in.
Like sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm just going to turn on my music. I'm giving myself 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, if you still don't want to do it, and generally I'm like still pretty good. Like I have to treat myself like a little kid.
Yes.
Like trick myself, right? But it's generally because we don't want to feel some type of emotion. It's like why we won't sit down and do something, because you don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to feel stupid or shame or whatever that is that comes up for you. But yeah, girl, I actually need to respond to something about my taxes now. I'm like, oh,
I'm sorry. I didn't
open up this portal. It feels so tedious to me.
It is. And to do it every year. It's like, God, can't we just be good for about 5 years? Like, I don't know. Like
someone was saying, like, the fact that they send the paperwork to us, but knowing that probably they could just send it to the IRS, like,
right,
why you got to send it to us? We don't need it. Just go ahead and report. Y'all reporting it to them anyway.
Yeah, cut me out.
So I think I'm on board with that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me and taking the time out of your day. I know you got a busy day budgeting. No, I'm kidding. What do Mondays usually look like? Are you off? Or are you kind of
Mondays are generally my like working in my business days. So sometimes I get coaching from coaches on Mondays. I write content on Mondays. I have a podcast, so I record on Mondays. But yeah, I try to like set my week up. But sometimes Mondays also look like me being like, aren't I off? I'm like, no, you're not off. Managing yourself as a business owner is like, it's hard. I'm like, Keina, get your life together.
It's like we almost need a person to tell us what to do.
I definitely needed a person to tell me what to do, but also don't tell me what to do because I don't want to be told what to do.
Relax.
But no, I definitely, actually I was listening to a podcast this morning, and she was talking about like writing down your values as like a CEO and like, what do you think a CEO is? And I was like, I need to go through that exercise because sometimes you be acting like you out here like running a side hustle.
Right.
Like you ain't got bills to pay.
It's so true. It's like, you got to stay grounded. You got to keep your head in. But no,
but it's giving yourself permission to recalibrate. Like, I think I used to shame myself a lot because I was supposed to be doing things in a certain way. Which I think really come from the 9-to-5 structure that I was attached to for so long, right? Because like you do have someone telling you what to do or whatever. Or you're like, for me, I was responding to things that were always happening. So I've had to give myself a lot of permission, working for myself, just undoing what a work life looks like. So.
Yeah, it's all about that balance for sure. I got a few tasks that I got to get to, but I am very happy. I heard it's really nice outside. I mean, it looks nice. I heard it feels
nice. It is nice. Yeah.
So I might have to go outside for a second and get some sun.
Yeah, I did a little walk earlier, so it's nice. It's a little breezy, but it's good. The sun is out, so it helps.
Thank God. But thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's stay connected. You can find me on Instagram at imbalancedwithkat or on my website, imbalancedpod.com. Give me a follow or a podcast review, and I'd love to share it on air. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.